first big story this week, Christian Pulisic and his injury status. The latest news is up on ProSoccerTalk at NBCSports.com. I was in the press conference with Frank Lampard, who gave the latest update on Pulisic and said it's a very small, minor injury. Of course, pulled out of Chelsea's starting lineup before the game against Burnley. Had a tweak in his hamstring, which Lampard said isn't a big deal. He's very relieved at that. But gents, we all love Christian Pulisic. I want to start by saying that. He is the biggest hope American soccer has ever had. And it's wonderful to see him on the pitch. And we do not like to see him out on the sidelines like we have, quite frankly, too often in the last 12 to 18 months. Not even before he was at Chelsea as well. He had these issues at Dortmund. So with these issues piling up, should we start to be a bit worried here, Nick? Because I'm looking at the comments from Lampard. He's talking about we have to manage him. We have to ease his workload. I mean, he's 22 years of age. He's had a very big career already. But should we be worried about Pulisic long term here?
I don't. Long term, maybe. Maybe his prime might be a concern. But I think it's important to note that not being available all the time is not unique. He's our star right now, so it feels dire. And it makes you think of Andy Carroll or Jack Wilshere. But it's easy to forget Robin van Persie and Arjen Robben. They missed a lot of games and were still dynamic attacking players well into their 30s. Would you take them on your national team? You surely would. So managing means you've got an explosive guy with a rare physical skill set, and he needs special care. So for now, it's reason to keep it in the back of your head, but we'll be fine.
Yeah, Andy, what about you?
Yeah, I'll do something that I typically don't like to do, and so I'll frame it as a question. I don't like to try to get into, a player's mental state or inside their head, what they're thinking or what they're feeling. But I do begin to wonder, at what point does he get a little frustrated with these, consistent injuries that keep creeping up for him? Because as soon as he went down there in warmups on the weekend, immediately punching the ground, immediately the bib is off and throwing it down. He knew immediately. So he is now to the point where he can feel any little thing and know that it's going to be an issue for him, because he's been through this before. It's been enough times now that he just knows. And so, I don't want him to get frustrated, because I think then you run the risk of pushing yourself too hard. And that's only going to lead to even worse things down the road. So, it really is, I think, going to be down to the medical staff there at Chelsea to get him on a plan that is going to maximize, what he is able to handle and give on a physical level.
And it's kind of similar injuries, right? It's a lot of upper leg, like hamstring is a reoccurrence, adductor, thigh, that kind of area there. So obviously it's to do with his incredible pace, his acceleration. Lampard's talked about that in depth. Again, it's on ProSoccerTalk at NBCSports.com. He said they're trying to mold the training program to make sure they reduce those injuries and that he doesn't get frustrated and he doesn't get injured, because he is a very important player for Chelsea. Let's not beat about the bush here. But I wanted to say as well, how can he possibly adapt his game? Because as an Englishman, I grew up watching Michael Owen rip it up for the first 5-6 years of his career. Then he just had consistent hamstring injuries. We all hope that doesn't happen with Christian because of his pace, because of the way he played. And then his career just fizzled out. He could never really adapt or change. That was his game changer. Andy, for you, can Pulisic maybe do something a bit different? Can he change, move centrally maybe rather than being out on the wing? What can he do to kind of manage this better?
Yeah, I don't know if it's as much a positional thing as maybe it's just kind of his age at the moment as well. We do forget, because he is the star, that he's 22 now. And so physically, he's not totally done developing. And I fully appreciate that this reference might be lost on some people here listening to this. I can't think of one from the soccer world at the moment off the top of my head. But Bradley Beal in the NBA, for the first 5 or 6 years of his career, injury after injury after injury, was continuing to grow and fill out and develop physically, hit 24, 25, 26 years old, all NBA player every single year once those injuries went away, had the injury bug tag on him. So I maybe a little bit of patience, I guess, could potentially get us through this with Pulisic, because obviously the talent is there, the explosiveness is there. He just needs to find a way to kind of harness that, within the limits, I guess, of what his body is going to allow him to do.
Nick, if he's out again, I mean, he's only going to be out a short time now, but he's been out a few times now for Chelsea for multiple months with different injuries. Are they better set up now to cope without Pulisic? Because he's been so good for them since the start of this season. I mean, I'm looking around at Ziyech, Hudson-Odoi, Werner, Havertz, Mount. It's not like they don't have enough players, right, to cope without Pulisic, as bad as that would be for US fans and for Chelsea.
They're going to find goals. Werner is a stud. Ziyech looks like the truth. Havertz is adapting. Young guy, new country, but I have zero doubts about him in the long term. And even Mason Mount, who's been flawed in consistency, is still a guy who couldn't get an assist a game. So I'm not worried about their attack. I'd be more worried. There's less depth behind Timo Werner. So I think they're going to be fine. They'd love to have him there because he is maybe closer to Ziyech, but that's about it in terms of guys that crafty.
And we'll obviously get to potentially see Pulisic back on the pitch in the Premier League this weekend against Sheffield United, which you can watch on Saturday, 12:30 Eastern at Stamford Bridge. But then we maybe get to see him in the US national team jersey for the first time in a long time. He's been called up by Greg Berhalter in a very youthful squad. He's only called up European players for games in Wales against Wales and in Austria against Panama. So those two friendlies are coming up. The US national team haven't gotten together for a long time, only once previously in 2020, and that was right at the very start with the US North American-based players. So this is going to be a very interesting squad. And Nick, I know there's a few new boys there you want to keep your eye on because I think there's 10 uncapped players in this 24-man roster that Greg Berhalter, and a lot of them are at really big clubs in Europe, aren't they?
Yeah, you're at a point where you're saying names almost for the first time and hoping you get them right. The most exceptional one on the list in terms of catching people's eyes, Yunus Musa from Valencia. Doesn't turn 18 until November 29th. Arsenal guy, had 5 goals and 3 assists for them in PL2, but 22 times for England between U15 and U19. Scored his first senior goal, La Liga versus Getafe yesterday. So this is a kid who's going to be, again, 18 at the end of the month. Really exciting. Other guys, we know their names. Owen Odasoe is with Wolves. He's been named to their bench a few times. So a Premier League guy. Another one who isn't near Leicester's first team yet, although he's trained with them, is Chituru Adunze, who we've seen in, I believe, the U19 World Cup. And then you've got Johnny Cardoso, who's playing in Brazil. Richie Ledesma, we know a bit more about these guys. And even a guy, I have no prayer of saying his name right, Nicolas Giacchini from Caen down in France's second tier. So very exciting team. I think a lot of those guys we probably see in the Panama game and a lot of the big names we see against Wales.
Yeah, Andy, there's still a lot of big players there. Obviously, first time we're going to get to see the likes of Gio Reyna, Pulisic, McKennie, Adams, all in the same squad together. I just want another point on this. The roster will have an average age of 21 years and 300 days. So it's an extremely young team. But what are you looking for out of this US national team side?
Yeah, it's kind of incredible that we've been doing this Gio Reyna thing as the future thing for so long, but he has 0 caps for the U.S. It's just not happened for him yet, I guess, at this point. But so that's obviously something to really look forward to. He has proven that just the conveyor belt of talent at Dortmund is a really, really beneficial thing for the U.S. men's national team, and we need to try to get as many players there as we can to do their development at that club. I'm kind of looking at this defense here, though, and thinking about the entire player pool as well, and thinking about World Cup qualifying whenever that's going to begin, and the World Cup as well, and thinking, do we have any good defenders? I think we've got a couple pretty good fullbacks that we've developed, which is a position that we've not had for a very long time, but center back is a real worry for me at the moment. John Brooks is still going to be relied on, and he's in this squad as kind of the centerpiece of that defense, and it's just never happened for him, at least on the international level to this point. So I'm a little worried defensively. Chris Richards, he's going to need maybe a big leap forward to kind of, obviously take a starting spot in the national team, but to be an impact player that we need there on the back line.
And of course, we'll have you covered here on Pro Soccer Talk and NBCSports.com. USA are playing at Wales and in Austria against Panama. We'll have you covered with analysis and news from the international break as the USA are finally back to playing, and it's going to be interesting to see Pulisic, McKennie, Reyna, Adams, all of those big boys leading a young group of players underneath them. So, yeah, absolutely buzzing for that, lads.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe. Make sure you subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and always join us every weekend at 7 a.m. on NBCSN for Premier League mornings. Plus, make sure you subscribe to Peacock Premium as well, where you can watch exclusively live 175 games and same-day on-demand replays of all 380 Premier League matches as well.